Welcome to the Faithful Vegan Podcast, where we bring faith to your kitchen table. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and join us on an amazing journey inside the wonderful world of veganism. And take part in the discussion of food and faith while receiving tips and tools on how to maintain a plant-based diet long-term. Our goal on The Faithful Vegan is to inspire you to live your healthiest life, both spiritually and physically, so that you can complete your God-given mission on Earth. Now let's get into the show with your host, Cersei Blue.
Welcome to The Faithful Vegan. I'm your host, Cersei Blue. Today we will be speaking with Debra Williams. She has an inspiring testimony about her battle with cancer. She is a 6-year cancer survivor who decided to take a different path to recovery. In this podcast, she discusses why she refused chemo and radiation therapy and how she used God's 8 laws of health to recover from cancer. She discusses her journey with adopting a plant-based diet and how that saved her life. In this podcast, she also tells the listeners how she left her full-time job as a banker to become a champion advocate for health and wellness. We also learn about the amazing work she is doing with helping people around the world fight the diseases they are facing. Without further ado, let's jump right in.
Hi, Debra. It's a pleasure to have you on The Faithful Vegan. I'm so glad that you could speak with our audience. How are you?
Good morning, Cersei. I'm doing well. Good morning to your audience also.
Great. I wanted to start off by just congratulating you on being a cancer survivor. And I'm just going to jump right in. You have a powerful testimony about your personal experience with breast cancer. Can you tell the listeners when you were diagnosed and what was that like, just the initial diagnosis piece?
Oh, Cersei, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2012. It was early 2012. Now, I had felt a lump a few months before, and I suspected it was breast cancer. But at the time I was traveling so much, I didn't have a chance to get it checked. And by the time I got to the doctor and we did the biopsies and did the blood test and the CT scan, then the confirmation came in that, yes, it is stage 2B breast cancer, which has already spread from the breast and has already gone to the lymphatic system.
Wow. So once you were diagnosed, what was the procedure from there? Did they remove the lump, and then where did you go from there after hearing that?
Well, once I was given that, my doctor wanted to be sure it hadn't spread to any main organs. So we did a series of other tests. He wanted to do a complete executive profile just to make sure, we didn't have any metastasis to the liver or to the kidneys. And we did all of those tests, and those came back, fortunately, saying that the only area where the cancer had spread so far was in my lymphatic system under my arm. And once we found that out, he was very clear that it was an aggressive type of cancer, and his recommendation was to cut the breast off immediately, do chemotherapy and radiation, and go on hormone therapy for 5 years. So that was his recommendation. And my own research has shown me that cancer is a lifestyle disease, and it can be reversed with diet and lifestyle change, trusting in the Lord. And so I did a lumpectomy. I took the tumor out, but I opted not for removal of the breast, no chemotherapy, no radiation, no hormone therapy.
Wow. So your doctor gave you the options, chemotherapy, radiation, and you opted to go an alternate approach. What was this alternate approach? Tell us about what you actually did.
Okay. Well, I tell all of my clients, because I do work with many persons with cancer now, that the program I went on is not something I designed. It comes straight from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's a part of the health reform message, and there's a book called Ministry of Healing by Helen G. White, and the book is very clear. I went and asked the Lord what to do, and the Lord directed me back to that book. In the book, God has laid out for us 8 steps that he has designed for us to reverse any disease. And so the acronym is called New Start, and the principles are, a plant-based diet, a whole food plant-based diet, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, and trust in God. So I started learning about the New Start program, started learning about the different components of the New Start program, and I went on that pathway.
Wow. So how long were you, so you were doing a plant-based diet, you were making sure you were getting exercise, water, rest, you were praying, all of those things. At what point did you see some results? Because you were still in contact with your doctors, going back and forth. Was there a point where you went back and said, hey, this is what I've been doing, how am I doing so far? When was that?
Well, actually, even before I went to the doctor, when I started the program, the first thing, Cersei, I started losing weight. No, I had gone on so many weight loss programs, and I couldn't lose any weight. But on this whole food plant-based diet with my exercise combination and resting properly and drinking lots of water, I took off 40 pounds within 8 months. I was fit, I was healthy, I was feeling good. At the end of 9 months, I felt convicted by God that it was time to go back and get my official test done. So I went to Miami and I did a PET scan, which is a test that can show you if there are any cancer cells at the cellular level in your body. So I did my PET scan and it came back showing that the cancer cells were all gone and I was clean from cancer.
Wow. And I know there's a lot of research out there that talks about a plant-based diet and how it can reverse or prevent cancer. What was it like making those adjustments? Because I know we live in a culture where, meat dominates our plate and people are very attached to a certain way of eating. What was the transition like? And what can you tell the audience for someone who's perhaps they are, if they have cancer, they have some other kind of chronic illness, and they've done their research too, and they're thinking, hey, I would like to get on a plant-based diet, but where do I start? How do I give up the meat?
That's a very good question that you just asked, Cersei. It is a very big challenge for many persons. For me, though, it wasn't a challenge because it was do or die for me. I had done the research, and I found out in my research that the meat is carcinogenic. It's causing cancer because they are now pumping the meat with hormones and growth steroids and antibiotics. And all that combination of those things in the meat is now making it very unsafe for us to consume it. And so when I read Ministry of Healing, and there's a chapter in the book called Ministry of Healing by Sister White that talks about flesh as food as a title. And when I read it, it was very clear. The counsel coming from God through that woman has told us that the time will come when it's no longer safe to consume the flesh food. So I literally went in the kitchen and I went into my freezer and I took out all the meat and I threw it in the garbage. And then I went and started learning, because I'm a good cook normally. So whatever skills I had in cooking meat, I started learning, teaching myself how to now create very healthy vegan options without the use of flesh food.
Wow. And it's amazing. So, because a lot of times, I mean, when you were going to your doctor, was he amazed at what had happened through a plant-based diet? Because I know a lot of times with a lot of diseases like, high blood pressure, diabetes, breast cancer, a plant-based diet, the research is there that these things help with it. But a lot of times doctors are not even recommending it as an additional treatment, even with the other treatments. And I'm curious if you have any comments on why do you feel, people aren't talking about this much in the medical field, considering just how much research is out there and how powerful this is towards these type of diseases.
Cersei, when I went to my doctor, when I started doing this and I told him what I was going to do, he was very pessimistic. In fact, he usually shouted at me in his office that I can't do that and putting my life at risk. And I told him I'm willing to take the risk because it's my life. Because I've done the research and I've seen so many millions of people who have done chemo, radiation. They've spent millions of dollars and the cancer came back in more aggressive way. And then I did the research and I started finding the empirical evidence that a plant-based diet is the best diet for the human body in any case.
Right.
So I started literally educating my doctor about nutrition. As I learned, I would teach him and share with him the information. I also gave him a copy of the book Ministry of Healing and asked him to read it. And so as we went along, month by month, when I finally got my results back, and I took it to him and I showed him, here is the evidence, my doctor turns to me and said, by law and by the license that governs him as a medical doctor, he still has to tell me to do chemotherapy and radiation.
Right.
And so I understood that, this is what it boils down to. By the government, by the law of the country, and by the license that governs him as a doctor, he doesn't have a choice. He cannot tell me to go on a plant-based diet to reverse cancer. He has to tell me chemotherapy and radiation. And so I understood that, and, I didn't argue with him. I just simply decided to go the pathway that I knew was best for keeping my body healthy and to reverse this thing and to keep it away from coming back.
Right. And I think the times are getting a little bit better because I've known several people who, when they were diagnosed with cancer, the doctors, they would still recommend chemo treatment and like everything else, but they would recommend that going forward that a plant-based diet would be a good one. So I think there is a little bit of movement, but I think, again, traditional medicine probably is still at the forefront. But for someone who may be listening and they may have exhausted chemo treatment, radiation therapy, or someone who are doing those things now and they just want to add, the plant-based lifestyle to the treatment they're already doing, what would you say to them in terms of just giving them some research about how plant-based actually helps with cancer? What would you say to them?
For the last 5 years, since I went through cancer recovery, because I'm now a trained naturopathic doctor, all right? So I've gone back to school and I've done my training. And I'm also a specialist in nutrition, so I've also done that training in the last 5 years. And I have many clients who call me who are going through chemo and radiation, and I have helped them to transition to a plant-based diet, and they're doing very well. They're doing very well. Many of them have discontinued the chemo and the radiation because they realize that they're having a better response when they have gone on the plant-based diet using all the 8 laws of health. Because I'm always quick to caution my clients, it's not just the food. It's the combination of factors that heals the body. Mm-hmm. So if somebody listening right now to us and they have been diagnosed with cancer and they're thinking of going this route, I would recommend that they even do a research on a Dr. Lorraine Day. She's the first medical doctor I found who was diagnosed with breast cancer, opted for no chemo, no radiation, and she went on a plant-based diet. It took her 18 months, but the cancer was reversed. And her name is Dr. Lorraine Day.
Dr. Lorraine
Day. So
I
learned through her, Dr. Lorraine Day. I learned through her website, and I started going deeper and deeper into the research. And I started meeting other people like me who were diagnosed with cancer and who went full plant-based. And those people are healthy and well, and the cancer has been reversed. The body automatically heals itself when you give the body what it needs to build back your immune system.
Right. And it seems like, on the Faithful Vegan, we tend to talk about, the benefits of plant-based diet, and we also talk about just how our faith plays into the decisions we make about our health. So tell us a little bit, and you've already kind of elaborated with the writings of Ellen White, but how did your faith play into you even making these decisions to actually go that natural route?
Cersei, I became a Seventh-day Adventist Christian in 2007, and I have built a very close relationship with God. And so, everything I do in my life, He's involved. And when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, He was the first person that came into my mind. Lord, what would you have me do? Now, there's a scripture in Exodus 15, verse 26 that I first came across when I was going through my prayer and asking the Lord what to do. And that particular scripture makes it very clear where the Lord says, this is Exodus 15, verse 26. And He says, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in His sight, and will give ear to His commandments, and keep all His statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. And I said, okay, Lord, you are the Lord that healeth thee, Exodus 15:26. What was the original diet that you made for man when you created man? Genesis 1:29. And I read it, and Cersei was quite clear. in Genesis 1:29, when God made man, our diet had nothing to do with flesh. I said, okay, fine. So I'm going to go the route that God designed when he designed man in the first place. And the more I went on that pathway, and the more I helped others, because I work with hundreds of people across the world to do what I am doing now, and the remarkable calls I get, the person just praising God and telling him thanks because they're feeling better, whether it's cancer, diabetes, hypertension, obesity, they're feeling better on a plant-based diet.
Right.
And so the more I see my body healing, the more I work with people and see how they respond, is the more it keeps me faithful and strong that he who made my body knows the best thing to put into my body.
Wow, that's wonderful. And I think a lot of times, you have some people, they're skeptics, and so they're saying, well, that's just the Bible saying that. But the more that we are doing the research, even in this 21st century, the more of the data is actually backing up exactly what you're saying. You read the China study and other major breakthroughs in terms of cancer and how that is linked to our consumption of meat in our country. The more meat we ate, the more cancer rates went up. It's kind of showing that the science is also is in direct connection with what you're saying there as well. So
true.
It's just amazing how far we've come, even simple other diseases. Because you talk about, I think we spoke, and you said that you're not only just dealing with cancer now, you're having people call you with other chronic disease like diabetes and high blood pressure.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. Yes,
one of the areas that I specialize in is diabetics. And the reason is because, one, it is so easy to reverse. And so I do lots of seminars and workshops across the length and breadth of Jamaica right now. And diabetics, when they call me and they're on metformin and they're on insulin, and seriously, you'll be amazed how within just 30 days of changing their diet, getting them off the meat, putting them on a whole food plant-based diet, getting them exercising and drinking their water, in 30 days they're off medication. If they're fat, they lose the weight. And these people are just so amazed that after 10, 15, 20 years of being on insulin and metformin, just by changing their diet and lifestyle, that the body now heals itself.
Right. And I think what's important about what you're saying, which for a lot of our listeners, you didn't do this in isolation. You were doing this. You were still going back to your doctor to say, hey, check me. For people who may have like high blood pressure or other things, this is something that you could work with your doctor and say, listen, I'm making some lifestyle changes, and you could work in progression with your doctor. So this is not something that you're just doing isolated on your own. It's something that you're doing with your medical professionals and seeing the results.
Yes, you're absolutely correct, Cersei. In fact, there's no client I work with who doesn't have to first go to their medical doctor, because I like to have the before and after test. So if a client calls me and they have cancer or diabetes or hypertension, the first thing I do is ask them to go and get a report from their doctor. Then at the end of the 30 days, they go back for a second. So the doctor also gets a chance to realize that, hold on, there's a better way outside of the medication. There is a better way. And so all of our clients are encouraged, they're all advised that they must work with their general practitioners. They must stay close to their doctors.
Right. That's a very good point to make. So this is definitely a really amazing story. And one of the things that really stood out to me just hearing your story is that your background is finances. And somehow, through this whole testimony and this journey of yours, God led you in a different direction, and you're doing this full time. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm a banker by profession. From I was 18 until I was 37, I've worked with the Central Bank. I've worked with the Caribbean Development Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank. And so I'm a banker. I have a master's degree in banking and finance. But when I was diagnosed with breast cancer and I started doing my research and I started getting more into nutrition, I went back to school. I said, no, I have to learn properly about this body, about nutrition, about how food affects our health. And so I closed my finance business and I am now officially finishing up my doctoral program in naturopathic medicine with a specialization in nutrition.
That's
so I made a 360-degree turn, complete change from finance
and
straight over into health and wellness.
Right, and it's become now a full-time ministry, a full-time career.
A full-time ministry, it is.
Cool. So hearing this, once you did the plant-based diet and you saw that it was reversing, was this something that you have to do long-term, or is it just something you do for that short period of time? For somebody listening, is this a long-term lifestyle, or?
This is a lifestyle change, Cersei, and listeners. You know, when I work with persons who have been diagnosed with cancer, I'm always very careful to point out to them that this is not a diet. It's a lifestyle change, because the cancer can come back if you go back to doing what you were doing before. And so once you've gone full plant-based, once you're on the program, once you're doing your exercise, you have to keep doing this for the rest of your life. It's a lifestyle change.
And for someone who, just listening to what you're saying, for someone who may not have cancer, it sounds like, you know, doing all the research with the plant-based again, is that these are protect yourself from certain diseases. Tell us a little bit about how the lifestyle, and I'm hoping that you could repeat it again, the acronym, for those who want to just live more of a healthy lifestyle and who want to protect themselves from certain diseases in their body.
That's a very, very good question, because my focus is, and our focus really is on cancer prevention or disease prevention. It's about screening for cancer, screening for diseases, or being tested. It's about preventing them in the first place. Now, our Creator, God, has made our bodies in such a way where the body heals itself. But we have to give the body what it needs to remain healthy. So we need our carbohydrates, our proteins, our fats, our phytochemicals, our antioxidants, our enzymes, our minerals and vitamins. If we are consuming our foods in a whole food, plant-based way, not junk food, not plastic bag food, but whole, not processed food, but whole food. Once we are feeding the body, the nutrients that we're getting is designed to keep the body healthy. So our focus when we do workshops and seminars and even on programs like yours is to encourage the people that you do not have to come down with these lifestyle diseases. If you're on a whole food plant-based diet and you're sticking to the New Start program, the acronym is New Start. It means nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, and trust in God. These are the 8 laws of health.
And what's funny about them, they seem like they're all free, right?
They're all free,
like everyone has
except for the food.
Except for the food. You have to buy the food, but it's empowering because we all have access to have control of those things. We could decide to have sunshine. We could decide to choose the food that we eat. We could decide to connect with God. These are things that kind of empower the person, and it doesn't leave you as codependent on the medical system. It kind of empowers you to take charge of your health. And I think that's one of the things we try to do here on The Faithful Vegan, is to empower people to take charge of their health and to realize that there are so many things that we can do for ourselves and that we have control by the choices that we make. So I know a lot of times, and I'm going to wrap up, but we have to talk about the food. It comes into the food again. There are so many delicious meals that you could eat, and I think a lot of times when we're talking about, replacing the meat, what are some of the things just to throw out there for someone who's like, is this doable for me? I have a chronic disease. I really want to do this, but what are some of the ways that you kind of, be creative with the food?
Cersei, when I was going through cancer recovery, my first point of research was, how do I make healthy alternatives? How do I give up the meat? And what do I eat? And so I started creating my own vegetarian dishes. It got to a point where out of my research over the last 5 years, I have written 2 vegan recipe books which are available on my website. I've also placed on my website about 70 recipes, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, plant-based, healthy foods. So if any of your listeners are thinking, no, I want to start this, Debra or Cersei, I don't know where to start, They can go to my website, click on the tab for recipes, and I have listed about 70 recipes there that will help them start making, healthy breakfast option, veggie stew, your shepherd's pie. We bake our banana bread. We make our own muffins. No eggs, no baking soda, no baking flour, no animal byproducts are in them. And so they can start there by going on my website. I do have the recipe books, and they're for sale on the website also. And my website is, my name is www.debrahwilliamsja.com.
Okay, wonderful. So they can go to your website and be able to get free recipes, but if they want more, they can get, you have 2 vegan books, recipe books. And you also have another book about telling your story in more detail.
Yes, I do, because I've written a book that, will guide somebody. If somebody has cancer right now listening to us on this program, and they want to say, what exactly do? I've written a book called How I Overcame Cancer Using God's Laws of Health. It's an e-book, and it's also available on my website. Okay,
and can you just say that website one more time? I will also put it in credits. What's the website?
Sure. It's www.Debra, D-E-B-R-A, DebraWilliamsJA.com.
Okay, wonderful. And you also offer one-on-one consultation and other resources that they can also find on that online as well.
Oh, yes. I have clients around the world. I have clients across the globe. Diabetes, cancer, hypertension, obesity, skin problem, hair problem. It doesn't matter. All of it starts at the base, which is proper nutrition.
Wow. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Debra. You are an inspiration to those, who have overcome such a major chronic disease by taking charge of your health and applying the 8 laws of health. And it's a blessing to have spoken to you, and may God continue to bless your ministry. Is there anything coming in the pipe in the near future that you're going to be speaking at any events or anything coming up for your ministry that we could be
I've been getting quite a lot of calls from Canada asking me to come up there to do health seminars. Nothing has been finalized as yet.
Okay.
Most of the health seminars I do know are really in Jamaica. But if any listeners, listening now and they want help, they can just send me an email. My email is debra.williams2007@gmail.com.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to just continuing to seeing the great work that you're doing and the lives that you're changing through all the resources that you're providing. And I look forward to seeing all the great things you're continuing to do in the future.
Thank you so much. God bless you and keep you safe, and God bless your listeners.
Yes. Thank you so much, Debra. Have a wonderful day.
You too, Cersei. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to the Faithful Vegan Podcast. Remember, a healthy body plus a healthy soul equals whole. Be sure to check out our blog at www.cerseiblue.com and contact us on Facebook at Cersei Blue, The Faithful Vegan, as well as on Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram at Cersei Blue.